Okay, Andrew, I think you're live and ready to go.
Thank you, Matt. Well, good morning, everybody, officers and members. Welcome to the April edition of the Planning Policy and Built Heritage Working Party, today the 19th. I think, although we don't have any members of the public, it would appear, I think if I can just remind people perhaps to mute and turn their video off if they're not members of the working party until such time as I invite them into the meeting to address the meeting. That would help enormously. We have Matt instead of Emma due to the technical problems, and we have Linda with us as well, don't we? So if I can move to the agenda first up, apologies for absence. I have them from Councillor Jeremy Punchard and from Councillor Nigel Dixon. And I believe that Councillor Nigel Pearce is still unable to join meetings routinely. So we have 3 absences, and I believe we don't have any substitutes. Linda, is that the case?
That's correct. None of them were available. Right.
Okay. Thank you very much. So item 2, do we have any public questions? I don't believe we have, Linda.
No, we have no public questions this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So moving to the minutes of the last meeting on Monday, the 22nd of March, which are on pages 1 to 5 of your agenda. If I can just go through these and ask if anyone has any comments or corrections to make. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. And last with page 5. Anybody, any? So I propose that we accept the minutes. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Grove Jones, thank you very much. And if we can all show hands to approve them. Excellent, thank you very much. So I will sign those at some later date, sometime. If you just let me know, Linda. So we move to the next item on the agenda, which is number 4, items of urgent business. I don't believe we have any, Linda, do we? No. Item 5, declarations of interest. I refer you to pages 7 and 8, I think, where there's a convenient flow diagram to assist us in deciding whether we have any interests to declare pecuniary or otherwise. Does anyone wish to declare forevermore hold your peace if you don't speak now? Thank you very much. No interest then. And then to item 6, update on matters from previous meeting. I don't have any updates. Anyone else? I see nobody indicating. Thank you very much. So we move
Mark put his hand up.
Sorry, Linda?
Mark put his hand up.
So I beg your pardon. Sorry, I missed you, Mark.
That's all right. Anyway, I don't know whether it's for me or members to do updates, but just thought it'd be worth mentioning that the Duty to Cooperate Forum meets on Thursday this week. And following your resolution at the last working party, we've drafted a revised agreement around surface water drainage and flooding. So if you remember, that was you made that sort of conditional on your support for the framework document. Just so you know the process, that revised agreement will have to be signed off by all of the partners. So it's not in our gift to just modify it. It's obviously a collective document that's produced by everybody. So it'll have to go to a decision at the forum meeting. I've done a sort of round robin amongst the sort of members, the office representatives on that panel, and I don't foresee any particular problems, but I'll obviously report back to you if there are any concerns that are raised. Hopefully it'll be a rubber stamping exercise, but I'll update you at the next meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for that. That's useful information. I wish you well in that meeting on Thursday. So moving to the first of two of the major items on the agenda, the local plan policy, draft policy approaches to sustainable development. So this is yet another step forward in finalising the wording of the policy to go in the local plan on the very important subject of renewable energy and low carbon measures. And if I can hand over to Officer Ian Withington initially. I believe I'm right in doing that.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. I'm just going to introduce this item. I'm bringing one item for discussion this morning, seeking your approval for the final planning approach to guide renewable and low carbon energy proposals in the district. I'm going to give a very quick introduction, pose a question for you to think about, and then hand over to Caroline, who will take you through the policy and the amendments and why they are necessary. Following that, we will take any relevant questions. So I'll start by just saying, since the writing of Regulation 18 policy, the consultation in 2019, there have been significant changes in national policy on how such proposals should be supported through plan making. The government agenda has changed to a more positive stance and a legally binding commitment given requiring the country to reach net zero by 2050. All this you know, it's not new. In order to do this, though, we have already set local policies to address carbon reduction in construction and establish the use of low carbon technology in development. This aspect of a local plan will help us to drive and decarbonise the national grid and allow North Norfolk to do their bit in energy generation. Now we brought this policy back to Working Party, not just because of what I've just said, but because the council subsequently declared a climate change emergency. And I believe it's only right to ask the question and give the Working Party the opportunity to say if you wish to change the policy approach. The approach, as Caroline will go into in more detail, is one that balances low carbon energy production with landscape sensitivity. We have not changed this, but rebalanced the policy, making it more positively worded as required by the NPPF, not just to reflect the feedback at consultation, but also in order to give us the greatest chance of defending this approach at examination and subsequent appeals, if there are any, in light of a national approach and local agenda. The approach uses an established evidence base around the impacts of renewable energy infrastructure on the landscape, as well as other criteria, and as such identifies areas in the district that are suitable and consequently not suitable for specific types of carbon, low carbon and renewable energy production. With particular reference to energy generation for wind, members will recall that technically the whole of the district is identified as suitable for wind generation due to the topography and wind speeds available. But the approach adopted to date prohibits large-scale turbines across the district and only identifies certain parts of the district as potentially suitable for medium-sized turbines. Even then, proposals would have to demonstrate that individual and cumulative impacts on a wide range of criteria could also be mitigated. Now, the question I pose is this: do members now wish to put a greater emphasis on the support for the production of energy from low carbon sources due to the declaration of climate change, and wish for policy to be more supportive, in particular, of wind generation? If you do, then as Caroline will explain further, the only option you have is to accept larger turbines, which obviously produce more power. And as such, less weight could be given to landscape sensitivity in the determination of applications. And the greater area of a district would potentially be open to turbine development. Just keep that in the back of your minds as Caroline takes you through the policy, and I'll now hand over to Caroline. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. I will just briefly recap on how we came to this current version of the policy. An initial steer was given by members in the November 2017 Working Party. Obviously, that was under a different administration, different members, looking at exploring how to approach particularly suitable areas for wind energy development. The preferred policy approach was based on the identification of high value landscape, including designations such as the AONB, where there would be a prohibition of wind turbines in these highly sensitive areas, combined with a criteria-based part to the policy to help determine applications that were outside of these areas. It was recognised that further evidence would be required to help differentiate between the sensitivity of these landscapes, and as such, a landscape sensitivity study was commissioned. At the time, I think the members were also keen to get information regarding some of the former airfields to be evaluated as well in regards to landscape impacts. The resulting draft policy was presented to the Working Party in January 2019, where it was discussed in detail. The report highlighted, as Ian has mentioned, about the whole district being suitable for wind energy technology in terms of wind speed and topography. And that report also discusses the findings of that landscape sensitivity study, which was formally adopted last year as a supplementary planning document. The conclusion of the Working Party at that time was to reaffirm this preferred policy approach. And as Ian has mentioned, this last review of the policy takes into account the subsequent changes in national policy and guidance that have occurred, which I've sort of set out in section 4 of the report, as well as the consultation feedback received at Regulation 18 stage, which is summarised in section 3 and is in full in Appendix 1. Given all of these factors we've mentioned, the policy justification has been expanded to provide more up-to-date information about the main renewable and low carbon energy types, and the policy wording has been amended as set out in the Appendix 2 of the report, which I think is page 33 and 34 of your pack. I can try and bring up the policy wording just to quickly walk through it for you. I'll have a go. I'm not very good at this. All right, let's have a go. Oh, that's not very good. Hang on a minute. Oh dear, hang on a minute. Oh, can you see that? Yes,
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Good. So firstly, as Ian has mentioned, the wording has been more positively spun in the first and second paragraphs to encourage the principle of all types of renewable and low carbon energy development, including proposals brought forward by community-led initiatives. It states that these proposals will be supported where the site is located in an area that doesn't exceed moderate to high sensitivity within the landscape sensitivity SPD. It's considered that this approach is more even-handed across all of the types of renewable and low carbon energy. And this should also mean that it's less likely to be amended at examination in relation to its alignment with the national policy. We've also included mention of cabling infrastructure for offshore renewable schemes, which I know previously has been a concern. The policy has also been adjusted to align with paragraph 154B of the NPPF, which basically refers to all the elements that we've listed in the criteria set to be satisfactorily mitigated. So in effect, every proposal will need not only to in effect fall within inside the spatial moderate to high sensitivity, landscape sensitivity, it will also need to be assessed against this full comprehensive list of criteria. These have been expanded slightly to, at point 3, include the special qualities of nationally and internationally designated conservation sites and their qualifying features, habitats and biodiversity. And also at point 6, we've also added a criteria regarding where renewable energy development is removed from land, and that land is restored to its original use. Lastly, the final part of the policy has been amended to provide the clarity that the NPPF requires regarding suitable areas for the potential location of wind turbines, which is actually a requirement. It's not a wish list, it's a requirement. And therefore, we are proposing to use, I think it's figures 5.2 and 5.3, which I think are within the report, at pages 17 and 18, hopefully, that describe where the light red and light yellow areas on both those maps will be merged to show a suitable areas of the district for small and medium scale wind energy development. 4 of the district's airfields could also be included on that map, being potentially suitable areas for large-scale wind energy development. I'll just briefly try and get why. There we are. Overall, it's concluded that the changes to the policy reflect the national policy requirement of providing a positive strategy for renewable low carbon energy, with the inclusion of strong evidence-based protection and the comprehensive list of criteria as well to the most valued areas of the natural and built environment. It would also protect the amenity of local communities and to the biodiversity of the district as well. I'll finish there, and Ian said really it would be interesting to have your thoughts on whether you would wish us to sort of change this policy to make it even more positive, but in doing so, in effect, you would be, by removing the landscape sensitivity element, you would in effect be opening up the district to all landscape or large scale wind development, but it would be interesting to see your thoughts on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you for preparing the report. Can I just ask you on a point of clarification, is the area designated as the Broads Authority? Is that afforded the same status as the AONB? Is it, in other words, a no-go area for wind turbines to be constructed?
Yes, it is. It is. It's a designated area. Yes, that would be certainly protected.
Thank you for that. Right. If I can throw this open to members for any questions or comments. Councillor John Toy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for bringing us up to date and updating this in line with the new instructions. Can I just clarify something with the NPPF, which I know isn't our document, but 154 para A, it says it does not require applicants to demonstrate, etc. Is that basically it's saying we have a presumption in favour of renewables out of the NPPF? Is that, do I understand that correctly? It was kind of a double negative. Okay, thanks, Karen. I can see you nodding there, so that's great. Thank you. So a couple of things around wind energy. Yes, I know that we live in a sensitive area. We know what's happened when turbines have come before, but we talk about biodiversity. and I know we can plant around solar panels, but the amount of space that solar panels take up to generate energy compared to the footprint of a wind turbine is considerable. So we lose a lot of ground to put solar energy in compared to putting a wind turbine that would produce the same energy. And I don't think we need to be sensitive to the area. I'm not saying that, but actually, you know, there may be newer technologies where, you know, we've got the sort of vertical blade type stuff and you know, who knows what will come along. And I'd rather we don't discount wind energy for the reasons that I've said, you know, in that it takes up a smaller footprint, for technologies that may fit better with the landscape in certain areas. And then one last thing, if I try not to take up too much time, storage. If we move to more storage facilities, batteries or whatever, where does that fit in? Does that come under normal planning, or is that assumed to be renewables? So that, I'll leave it at that question, and the other is my thoughts on what we've spoken about. Thank you.
Caroline, do you want to come back on any of that, or would you rather I go to Councillor Kershaw?
I mean, I can quickly say that the storage, if you're talking about those sort of battery storage, they do fall under the sort of renewable and low carbon energy development. So in effect, they would be assessed against this policy.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And over to Councillor Richard Kershaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. I am slightly concerned with the policy, because I've been sitting on the Bacton South North Sea group and with Net Zero East, and most of the conversation that has been had and planning that is going ahead in coordination with the Climate Change Committee, it suggests that the major wind power will come from offshore, as we know, fields like Vattenfall, Vanguard, etc. The talk of an offshore ring main, I think, is fanciful. Certainly, it won't come within the timescale of these major developments. The national grid, we don't even know where that would even go. Even if it had to go down to the Thames Estuary, there isn't enough infrastructure to take the amount of power that's going to come out of the North Sea. And there is going to be a combination of AC and DC power. More and more fields are now going DC, as we are aware, and that is better in terms of cable laying, because we don't need substations across to places like Necton or to the Norwich interconnect. What the major concern for me is that the UK power network grid is not sufficient in East Anglia to cope with the growth that we expect for electric vehicles, let alone dealing with the power that's coming from offshore. Local solutions are going to have to be inherent and implicit within our plan. And it worries me that the technology is far outstripping the speed that we can plan for, and that the government is prepared to invest in. It's the discussions we've been having over the last year really points to local solutions with local power in terms of battery storage, and our estate in particular being more sustainable. And I think we are missing quite a lot within the policy. I mean, obviously we have to get greener. My big issue is that if we don't tackle this, there will not be an AONB to protect with climate change, and that's where I'm coming from. Thank you. You're muted, Andrew.
Sorry, can I go to Councillor Nigel Lloyd? Sorry about that.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank John and Richard for their constructive comments, actually, but also officers, because I was pleased to see the contents of the policy that's before us today. It's gone further than I thought you possibly would. The way I think things are going to go in the medium to longer term with regards to renewable energy production is more emphasis on local energy. And John's point about storage is absolutely vital. If you can't store the energy, you're only going to get it when the wind blows and the sun shines, which isn't acceptable to our lifestyles at the moment. So that's an important aspect. I would like to know about the Bodham, what officers feel about the Bodham case, which I believe that would be under the categories discussed this morning, a large turbine, and the council actually lost after I won't go over it. So I'm a little bit concerned that we might be setting a policy that isn't supported in planning law after we've received that judgment. But I am pleased that the AONB at this stage is being protected. I think that will be a fairly popular public decision. The final point that I'd like to make is the Richard touched on this, is the future development of technology. We should have words in there because this policy will stand for the next 20 years, I believe, something like that. We need, I don't think we can foresee advances in technology that might occur in that time frame. And the wording should reflect that other technologies may well come along. There are lots of very small wind turbines that aren't on stalks. They're low-level things that can sit in somebody's garden quite happily. They work on a sort of, I've seen one design that works on a double helix type of approach. You can't see them outside your fence line, but it generates vast amounts of energy. So I think those sort of things are going to be coming through. And local energy schemes, very important. I think with housing developments in the future, they will have to come with a justification of how they're going to produce their own energy. I think this is just going to come in time through legislation, actually. If the government is going to meet its 2050 targets, we need to allow for those sort of things. But overall, I'm pleased with this. I think we need to take account of future and have suitable wording in there that we can draw back on should technologies take a giant leap forward. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there. I've been whittling on for too long now. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Nigel, for your input on that. I guess I don't want to sort of steal Mark's thunder on this, but I guess that we could add a footnote in acknowledging that policy will not keep pace with technological change over the next 20 years, that we would amend policy by supplementary planning documents as and when appropriate to take into account the technological change that we're not aware of currently that will affect our policies. So I don't know if you want to comment on that, Mark.
Yeah, I will do. So I would expect the lifetime of the next local plan to be considerably shorter than the current one. So although we plan in 20-year cycles, we're going to be moving into a period of pretty much constant review. There's an expectation that local authorities will formally review their plans every 5 years, and then if necessary, prepare another one if it's out of date. So I think we're going to be more, but I don't think policies are going to be cast in tablets of stone for the duration of the next 20 years. They're inevitably going to be reviewed. You can't review policy through supplementary planning documents. That's cheating the system. If you adopt new policies, it's got to be done via the route of preparing a properly consulted on plan rather than via the back door. But what authorities do, we've done it ourselves, is they pass resolutions to apply their policies in slightly different ways. So a similar sort of process happened over barn conversion policy in the last 10 years has morphed considerably since we adopted the core strategy. We haven't produced another policy. We've just stopped applying the one we've got and attached different material considerations to the way that we make decisions. So I think as new technology comes along, it won't be be beyond the wit of the authority to apply its policies in a different way to take account of that new technology being available. I think the choice for you, it's quite a clear-cut, very simple choice, really. Do you want to continue to operate a presumption against these proposals in the AONB, respecting the fact that it's a national designation? Or do you want to take a even more permissive approach in the AONB and run the risks that you might end up with some damaging impacts as a consequence? For my part, I mean, obviously we're recommending it. I think the policy strikes the balance about right. I don't think we should undermine the national status of the AONB and leave it open to speculative proposals that we might struggle to resist. The bottom one's just outside of the AONB, so it's not actually in the AONB, but it's within the setting of. And under this new policy, would have a chance of getting permission if the applicant was able to meet the criteria which are in the policy, i.e. demonstrate that its adverse impacts were being properly mitigated, which is the judgment which the inspector made. You know, despite the fact that we argued against it, we said it had harmful impacts, primarily in relation to listed buildings and so on. The inspector took the view that in relation to its ability to generate significant amounts of power, the balance should be struck in a slightly different way. Had it been a few hundred yards down the road and actually within the AONB designation, I suspect that decision might have gone in our favour, because that national presumption about protecting the AONB would have come into play in the decision-making process. So I think that's really the nub of it for yourselves. I think the balance is struck about right. I hear what's being said about storage capacity and other things coming along that we don't yet know about, maybe some reference to that in the preamble to the policy to set up, an informal policy review or something, giving the nod towards those things that may happen would be useful. But I think the wording on the page, sort of as amended, as I say, draws what I think is the right balance for the district. It provides significant opportunity for renewable energy in those less sensitive parts of North Norfolk, and I think makes our contribution to that national requirement, reflecting the fact that it's a special area and it's got a national designation all along the coastline that we've got a responsibility to look after. Thank you, Chair.
Yes. Thank you, Mark. Yes, it's worth, I think, recognising that we are an area that's dependent on tourism as well as agriculture, and the AONB and the Broads Authority area are arguably a golden goose that lays an egg for us, and we should be mindful of protecting it, especially for the foreseeable future. And I take on board what you say about amending the local plan, quite probably within the next 10 years, possibly, which would then give us an opportunity to revisit whether we should alter our criteria and our approach to this. I think at the moment, the report, in my opinion, does strike a balance. It does identify through the landscape character assessment areas where we can accept medium turbines up to 100 metres at the tip, and contribute towards our responsibility to bring in a low carbon energy consumption within the district. I've got two people. I've got Councillor Heinrich, who's been waiting very patiently, and Councillor Gay. If I can bring in Councillor Heinrich.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of observations, really. I mean, I'm never one to be much in favour of onshore wind, certainly not very large turbines, though it can work. I mean, if we look at the little cluster of 3 at West Somerton, they're not particularly intrusive, and that sort of development, I think, is acceptable. I would take it as somebody wanted to build a very, very large turbine edge in North Walsham. I think I would find that area to be very sensitive, but I think that's an issue that we will come across, that wherever you put a wind turbine on land, it will be sensitive to somebody, and we're going to have some interesting debates. However, I think officers have done a pretty good job with this in trying to balance something that is very, very difficult in planning terms and in meeting the expectations of the public. Only issue is there's no mention really of much of the small scale development. Now we know the wind technology will change. We've already seen examples in the press, but there's no mention of photovoltaics on new housing developments, for example. And though there is a small individual source which collectively can make a very big difference to electricity production. So I just wonder whether we need to strengthen it in that way. I'd welcome officers' opinion on that. But overall, I think we've done a very good job here in getting a balance, which we can review as necessary. So no, I'd be happy with possible amendment on the photovoltaics on new housing to propose acceptance of the recommendation.
Mark, do you want to come in?
Well, either myself, I think probably myself or Ian. I saw Ian put his hand up. Largely speaking, Paul, the photovoltaics on buildings, on roofs and so on fall outside the scope of planning. They don't need planning permission, so they don't actually need a mention in the policy. We do deal with them on listed buildings where they will require consent. Again, I think that's around the sort of preamble to the policy and the aspirations of the council rather than actually in the policy itself. Some warm words about generally supporting renewable energy within the fabric of buildings, including photovoltaics and so on. And I suspect Ian will know because he wrote this. I think those words might already appear elsewhere in other aspects of the policy around technical standards and so on. So I'll let Ian say something if I've missed a point there.
Yeah, just to pick up on Councillor Heinrich's point, we are going to see more and more applications by private households to make use of the land within their curtilage for ground-based solar paneling, which is a smaller scale to the solar panel farms which are mentioned in the report. So it's just a question, I think, of associating those two types of schemes together and what our approach is to smaller, more domestic solar paneling, which is not installed on a roof, but within the garden area of a property. So, Ian, would you like to come in on this?
Yes, please. What I would say, we've covered the energy generation from renewables on development within the carbon reduction policy and construction standard policy, which, if you will recall, is calling for a reduction in energy use and a reduction in carbon production. And the way that's going to happen is through the use of fabric improvements within the design of the house, but also I'll call the bolt-on technical side through air source heat pumps, solar panels on those roofs, and that's going to be guided through that policy itself. This policy is more about the larger scale renewable infrastructure and sets the parameters for determining whatever scale that comes forward in still has to meet all these tests, and proposals would still have to demonstrate that any harm or mitigation can be achieved depending on, doesn't matter what scale it is. But we can add a little piece in supporting text linking the two policies and just referencing solar panel, if you like, in developments.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful. Thank you for that, Ian. If I can move to Councillor Virginia Gay, who's been waiting very patiently, and then afterwards to Councillor Grove-Jones. Virginia.
Thank you, Chairman. I put up my hand with the matter of timing because, as Mark has said, it's my understanding that this plan will be under pretty continuous review from now on. It's not something that's not going to be looked at for another 20 years. And I'd just like to say then, as I am speaking, I share Councillor Heinrich's view of the West Somerton site. I don't see that is the type of development that I would object to. I believe in the inclusion of airfields, but I'd also like to support what people have said about local solutions and local provision, because that's what's going to address fuel poverty in our area, and we are a high fuel poverty area. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Councillor Grove-Jones.
Thank you. Yes, I thought this is well written, the document. I mean, I read it through as always, and I can't see that, I agree with what has been said, that we should have something in to say that it's on a continuous review. I'm going to bring up my anaerobic digesters again, because I wasn't too sure with regard, this is on page 32, whether we're saying that this is important or not, because we are then basically using up waste products and producing energy, and it can be used for local farms or local developments. But as I said, I wasn't quite sure what this was saying, whether it was saying it's outside the local plan or within it. Mark, can you tell me that? I mean, I like the idea. I'm all for using waste and producing energy from it.
Okay, so it's not a wind turbine policy. So it's a
No.
much broader policy that's dealing with a lot of the, I would include aerobic digester type developments in there as well. The focus happens to be on wind turbines because of their impact on the landscape. That's what we're sort of preoccupied with. But the policy is intended to cover all types of low carbon energy generation. So it would include digester type proposals.
Do you want to come back in, Ian?
All I would just say is that the anaerobic digestions tend to have a moderate to low impact on the landscape. They have other issues around biodiversity and the type of crops sometimes are grown to use them, but they are all covered in this policy and would have to be demonstrated. Can be satisfactorily mitigated.
Right. Okay.
Thank you for that. That's appeased me, because, as I said, there was this tremendous. We've been concentrating on wind power. I'm like Paul. I'm not frightfully keen on onshore wind power with the tall turbines, but as you've said, that they're getting smaller and smaller, and now can be actually placed in people's gardens. So that's really good. That's moving on.
Right. Well, if I can summarise what people are saying, we are satisfied that the report will bring the policy up to date compared to the existing policy in our current core strategy. We have a little bit of work to do to ensure that people are aware that modifications will be made as technology develops, that we need to tie together the local energy schemes with more corporate energy schemes in the wording. That I do like my neighbourhood plans, Mark. Can I just ask what effect neighbourhood plan this will have on neighbourhood plans? Will neighbourhood plans have to be updated if they historically don't refer to low carbon energy, and in particular wind turbine sites within their districts?
I'll let Ian answer that one.
Thank you, Mark. Neighbourhood plans have it in their power to identify suitable places or schemes for renewable energy. That's in national policy and in the guidance. And this policy also specifically mentions right at the beginning, including from community-led initiatives. So we are highlighting the fact that if communities wish to bring forward low carbon and low energy renewable energy schemes, then in line with national policy, it is supported by the local community, we will support them in doing so. So we are explicitly saying that we will support local schemes brought forward by local communities. And that's also a nod to policy SD2, where we say we will, in support of community development, without the need of a community, a neighbourhood plan, we list a whole load of community projects, such as community shops, community pubs, and things which will be supported where it is demonstrated there is local support. And that's explicitly in line with what the NPPF is saying. So I think the local aspect is covered, is what I'm saying.
Right. Just to pick up on something that Councillor Kershaw mentioned as regards the timing of the scheme to bring into being an offshore transmission network. I understand from the government minister with responsibility for regulating this, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, that measures will be introduced through the energy bill, which is currently going through Parliament, which of course will include a lot of other measures not relating to offshore wind power. And it could be anywhere between 6 months and 2 years before that act is introduced. And all in all the while, we've got currently a new scheme coming on stream for onshore wind power, and that will not wait for the energy bill to be enacted. These schemes are going to be underway before we know exactly how we stand with the offshore transmission network, which is a bit concerning, given that National Grid proposed an offshore transmission network back in 2015. The report was shelved, and then Brexit has got in the way, as we know. Right, having said all that, unless anyone else has anything to contribute or bring to the meeting, I propose that we move to the resolution, which is that we recommend the revised policy set out in the report to Cabinet and delegate the responsibility for drafting such an approach, including that of finalising the associated policies to the planning policy manager. That's the resolution. So I'd like to move to a vote if you are ready. Either Emma, I think we've got Emma now, have we?
Yes, you have, Chairman. Hopefully you can all hear me
now. Good morning, Emma.
Good morning. Thank you. As usual, I will call your names out alphabetically, and if you could just indicate whether you are voting for, against, or abstaining. So starting with Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Fisher. Okay.
You're muted, Peter.
I think he's frozen, Chair.
Yeah, I think
I'll come back to him, and perhaps he is. Councillor Gay.
For.
Councillor Grove Jones.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Kershaw.
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
For.
Councillor Stockton.
For.
And Councillor Toy.
For.
Councillor Fisher, can you hear us now?
Yes, indeed. For.
Thank you. That's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for that. And thank you for your contributions, everyone. Moving to the next item on the agenda, item 8, North Walsh and Western Extension, and the proposals for public engagement. And I believe this is over to Officer Stuart Harrison to introduce. Over to you, Stuart.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. This morning, I want to give you a brief presentation on what we're intending to do as far as the engagement goes. So if you just bear with me a moment, I'll just load that presentation up. Okay, hopefully you can see that presentation.
Yes, we
can
can.
now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
What I intend to do this morning is give you a brief update on the ongoing work to produce the development brief for the Western Extension. I'll give you an outline of the nature of the proposed consultation and engagement. And I'll give you a preview of the website that we're currently constructing to allow people to see the emerging principles that we have in the development brief. So members were given an update on the progress of the West Extension when you considered and approved the North Walsham sites assessments back in the December working party. At that meeting, it was resolved that site NW62A, which is the Western Extension, should continue to be taken forward as a preferred option for allocation. And since then, we've obviously been continuing the work to produce the development brief. And one of the areas of work that we've been looking at most recently is some more understanding with our colleagues at Highways into a study that will provide us with more information on the potential link road from Cromer Road along Bradfield Road and into the industrial estate. So this work is being commissioned as we speak. The consultants working for the County Council are doing the work on that, essentially building on the feasibility study work that had previously been commissioned and published. So what they will provide us with, hopefully, is more understanding and detailed knowledge of issues such as the widening of Bradfield Road, the potential junctions that may be required, looking at the capability and the requirements of the railway bridges, the railway bridge, access considerations into and through the industrial estate. And we're hoping that this report will come back to us probably early summer, where it can give us that more detailed level of understanding of some of those issues. What we're also doing and continue to doing is having ongoing discussions with the Town Council, with the County Council, and all of the landowners. And obviously going forward beyond this engagement exercise, we'll continue that work of talking to all the stakeholders as much as we possibly can. As far as timescales go, we are working towards having a draft development brief produced by the summer. And ultimately, this development brief will be adopted as a supplementary planning document. Next, I just want to remind members of the draft vision that was previously approved by the working party. Now, this draft vision is essentially the high-level starting point for what is to come in the development brief, which says the vision is to provide a sustainable urban extension to North Walsham, which integrates with and positively contributes to the existing community. The new development will promote high quality design and placemaking in the built and landscape environment. It will improve transport networks and enhance economic activity in the town. It will promote social cohesion through the provision of housing that meets a wide range of needs. Development will be planned around a new link road, community facilities, green infrastructure, and a network of interconnected streets and open spaces. It will act as a catalyst for growth, helping to successfully integrate the sustainable urban extension into North Walsham. Some of the key themes that we are working on screen in front of you now. And these core themes are what essentially we're going to be engaging on in the coming weeks in hopefully mid to end May time. We believe now is the right time to carry out more detailed stakeholder and public engagement, building on the work that we've already done with the Town Council and other partners. Obviously, one of the main issues that we have at the moment is the current COVID restrictions that we have in place, really determine how and we can carry out any consultation or engagement. The usual face-to-face events that we would have in places like the community centre are not possible at this time. And even if the restrictions were lifted, there's an argument to say it's probably not advisable to try and get many people in the same room and have a lot of face-to-face contact. Also, I think waiting for the restrictions to be lifted would delay the process considerably. And there's no guarantees that these type of events would be able to go ahead in any case. So I think we've got to take the opportunity now to engage. And what we're looking to do next month is carry out an engagement exercise. And this will provide the local community and our stakeholders and partners an opportunity to see the emerging work and also get involved and feedback on what we've done so far. And although it will be based on a website, we're also looking to arrange a number of engagement workshops. We'll have one with the Town Council and Regenerate North Walsham and other stakeholders. We'll also be holding events with highways and having conversations with other key partners. And we're currently arranging those workshops now and getting the attendees availability, etc. We expect the engagement to run for around 4 weeks, and we'll be encouraging people during that 4 weeks to give us a call. It's not just going to be a static website. I think it's important that people can phone us up and have a conversation and understand maybe some of the issues that are being presented. We'll be distributing posters around the town so people are aware that the event is happening. And we're currently looking at also producing a very summary leaflet, so those people who don't have access to the internet can at least see something in written form, and which will also give them the contact details for how to get in touch with us. So here are the core themes that we are going to be looking towards. I won't go into these in any detail right now. You've seen these before when we presented the draft vision, but what I do have to say is this engagement at this point in time, it will be certainly a high level consultation on these themes. We'll not be presenting a fully formed or draft development brief, but we certainly hope that the level of information that we will be presenting will have enough detail to allow people to form an opinion and for them to provide worthwhile and useful comments back to us. Some of the content that will be in the website has already been informed by some of the conversations we've had with the Town Council and other partners. So I hope they can see some of the issues that they've raised with us already in the work that we're producing. So what I'd like to do now is just give you a brief preview of the website that we are building. It's by no means finished, so at this stage, please don't take any of the content literally. We've still got quite a bit of work to do on the content. So if you just bear with me a second, I'll just stop sharing this presentation and get the website loaded. Okay, is that visible to everybody?
Yes, it is, Stuart.
Yes, excellent. Thank you very much. As a starting point, what we built this website on, just for a bit of background, members will recall in 2019, we did a consultation on the design guide. The design guide was a website-based approach to the consultation. And as a website goes, it actually worked quite well. There were some issues with it, but actually as a consultation mechanism, I think it worked quite well. So we've adapted the design guide website. We'll be filling the website with obviously relevant content to the Western Extension. So I'll give you a glimpse of some of the pages that we'll be producing. You see here all of the themes that will be part of the development brief are all highlighted in here. If I go on to one, for example, transport and movement, you'll have text which will just outline the headline issues, and down this sidebar we'll have some more detailed text relating to some of the particular pieces of infrastructure that people might want to see. So for example, we'll have some information on the link road, describing what that link road is, what it will look like, how it will feel to people. We say here that it's not going to be a bypass type route. It's not going to be an Aylsham type bypass. It's going to be a residential street that goes through the development. We'll try and provide people with some images that sort of convey what that link road may well look like. What we'll also do on every sort of theme and topic, you'll have this section here called evidence. So that will provide people with the background evidence to why we've come up with the principles that we currently have. So for example, on the transport evidence side at the moment, we've got some information on the MPPF framework, some of the county council based policy, and also the link road feasibility study. And each, again, this will just be high level. We're not going to put reams and reams of text there, but it'll give enough information that people can see the evidence based for how we got to where we are. And if they need more detail, then they can click on any of the links and that will take them through to the relevant evidence page. As I say, we're working on this. We're working on the look and the feel and the design of it, as well as the content. One thing I'd like to sort of run past you, and as an idea, and one of the things that we were actually struggling with is what to call the development. North Walsham Western Extension is a bit of a mouthful, so for the time being, to try and be punchy and try and convey what it is, we've simply called it North Walsham West. I think that conveys to people what it is. It allows us to come up with a degree of branding over what that the development may look like. But again, this is something that we'll actually probably consult on. We'll probably ask the public, what could this place be called? Western Extension NW62A aren't terribly catchy, so we'll be asking people on their views on that. And just finally, just give you, for example, the master plan, indicative master plan will be on the website, so people will be able to see the thoughts of the layout of where the key pieces of infrastructure and the land uses will be. This will obviously be supplemented by keys so people can understand what it all means. But yeah, certainly we're hoping that the website that we're producing will certainly give people a flavour of where we're going with the website. So that's the website for the moment. I'll stop sharing that and go back to my presentation. Okay, so as I say, hopefully you've had an idea of what we're intending to do. It'll be a 4-week engagement exercise, very much based on the website, allowing people to read it. There'll be opportunity on every single page for people to click on a button and feedback and give us their views on that page or on the whole approach. Generally, we'll be supplementing the engagement with workshops with partners and stakeholders. And we're hoping to be on the end of the phone to anybody who wants to give us a call and discuss it. So I've put the recommendations on there, but obviously more than happy for myself and probably Mark to answer any questions that we can. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Stuart, for that. We see a lot of work has gone into this. We can see that. I have two members wishing to speak. First of all, Councillor Mancini-Boyle, and then Councillor Heinrich. Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I agree. This is amazing work. I'm very, very keen on infrastructure and long overdue. The question I'd like to ask Stuart, these type of schemes, they never run smooth, as smooth as you'd like. Do you foresee any negatives early on to the scheme? You know, I'm sure most people are clearly up for it and think it's a brilliant idea. But you're always going to get some negatives. Can you foresee any, or have you had any at the moment? Thank you.
I'll let Mark answer that one as he's smirking away.
Yeah, it won't be universally supported, and there is quite a lot of concern locally. So I think it'd be wrong to characterise this as all positive and all on the upside. I think there is an acceptance that the basic premise that sits behind the proposal is a sound one, given the other options that might be available elsewhere, which are very few and far between. And I'd characterise that we're in that point where we've got to prove the concept and how it works to some of the North Walsham residents, town council, and so on that still feel that there are issues that have not been properly addressed. So I think there's a lot of work to do between now and the local plan being prepared and the brief being signed off. And this is really just the start of the process. I was going to say, this is the first of 2 rounds of public consultation. So I'd characterise this as us showing our homework to people and saying, what do you think of this? We're at that sort of stage. Here's our early thinking. Here's some ideas we've come up with. We think we've got enough useful information to publish and seek views on. To date, our conversations have largely been with town council and a few others. So we want to broaden that out to the wider public. Got something useful to show them now. So that's the first round of engagement, this round. We'll then review the document and produce a further version, which will essentially be the council's proposals at that stage. And that will be subject to public consultation when we do the consultation on the local plan in probably sort of September sort of time. So it's a sort of 2-stage process. There'll be lots of challenges, I think. It's a major proposal. The development of the site, I think 15 years, I think I'm probably going to be long gone from the authority by the time this is developed out. It's not going to be easy. There'll be lots of ups and downs, but I think we're going about it in the right way. We're getting this development brief prepared alongside the policy so that everybody can see, what we're proposing. We're not leaving a lot of unanswered questions. So hopefully people will appreciate, as you say, that's gone into it, and we'll get a bit of support. But I still think there's a long way to go. We've got to win over quite a few people yet. I'm getting concerns from places like Coltishall, where they're thinking there's going to be traffic implications. If you build 1,500 houses on the side of North Walsham, it's not just going to affect North Walsham, it's going to have big impacts elsewhere as well. And I'm sure we'll still get those sort of concerns expressed.
Thank you very much for that. If I go to, first of all, Councillor Heinrich and then to Councillor Stockton. Councillor Heinrich.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I welcome this report, and I think that I put on record my thanks to Stuart and Mark for the amazing work they're putting into this. I mean, I think how far it's moved in 18 months or so. We're really making progress here. I mean, I've had no adverse feedback on this agenda item from the development, North Town Development Group of Town Councils and Regenerate and others. Little moan about and some concerns about the link road routing and so on, but that's all detail which we can come to. I think this month's consultation is really crucial to bringing the majority on board. I mean, as Mark is well aware, we have 1 or 2 people who are not going to agree with anything or will find reasons to look at it. It's not their concept of how a development should take place. But we're doing this for North Walsham and the overall design and concept needs to meet the needs of North Walsham. We can learn from other areas, yes, and I've come across many consultants who will try and put their views forward based on experience completely elsewhere. Now, we've got to look at the local situation, and one of my concerns has always been the impact of moving all the traffic further towards Norwich, and as Marcus said, Coltishall gets the hit from that. I think we've got a very good vision statement. It sets out an excellent basis for the development. We're going to get concerns, but I think with the vision statement and the core themes, we've now got a very sound basis to move this forward in a positive way. I mean, what I'm looking for is that we end up with a national exemplar of good practice. And if we can manage that, we really will have achieved something. So I'm more than happy to go along with the recommendation here, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heinrich. Appreciate your comments in that respect. Councillor Stockton?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I would endorse what Councillor Heinrich has said. The reports and the amount of work done are impressive. One of the things that always concerns me about this kind of exercise is that a lot of the things that people worry about and care about are outside the control of the council. And that's the infrastructure in terms of doctors' surgeries, schools, dentists, and all the rest of it. I know someone who, for example, couldn't get a dentist in North Walsham and has had to go to Ormsby St Margaret to get a dentist. I know it's not in the gift of the council, that's the problem, but there is a great deal of need for this plan to involve the stakeholders, to involve people who are responsible for things like that kind of infrastructure, in order that you get rid of a lot of the criticism, because that is where it is. The other criticism, which I hear frequently from people who live in and around North Walsham, who come out to the coast and all the rest, is, of course, the lack of jobs. And it's good that the report does, of course, refer to job opportunities, employment, etc. But that is, again, another point that the council only has a marginal handle over. So that would be my only concern. As far as the work that is planned there, I would be quite happy to second it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I move next to Councillor Nigel Lloyd and then to Councillor Virginia Gay? Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as local member, I just feel obliged to speak. I think everything I would have said has been said. Clive raised some interesting points, and I wouldn't challenge anything he said, actually. The perception is that we're expanding the town and there aren't enough dentists. They wrongly state that there aren't enough places in schools. That's something that should be, made very clear in the consultation side of it and in the slides you presented. And doctor surgeries, of course, is another one, not to mention the jobs. And I think those are the standard criticisms that you can expect. However, I think if we go back to the consultation itself, I think it's really good. I was impressed with the graphics, the work that's gone into it. And in light of the fact that we're still in the pandemic, I think it's a really good job that you guys have done, actually. So thank you for that. And yeah, look forward to it all starting, and thanks for listening. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Councillor Virginia Gay.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to say that I think our officers have been uniquely sympathetic to the concerns of local members in this matter, and I'd like to thank them. And I also remember when Mark came to an evening meeting in North Walsham, I think he was made very aware of people's concerns about medical provision. And I think that emerged in lots of the district. And frankly, I think that situation's got worse rather than better. But yes, I think officers are well aware of some of those underlying concerns of our residents. And again, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I would like to add my thanks to Stuart and his team for all the work he's been doing and providing such a professional presentation in this outline brief. I take it that it would also be mentioned in the print media. I think that was perhaps not on the list of the methods of engagement, but I think that's probably taken as a given. So I'm looking for a proposer and a seconder for the resolution as set out. Councillor Heinrich, you're prepared to propose the recommendations. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gay? That's very helpful that we have two members of North Walsham doing that. So the recommendation to approve public engagement emerging principles in the brief as set out in the agenda, and to delegate authority to the planning policy manager on the final timing and content of the engagement material following consultation with the chair of the Planning Policy and Built Heritage Working Party or Group and North Walsham members. Is that sufficient, do we feel? Yes, I think it is. Right. Emma, if we can set up a vote, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yep. I will call out your names alphabetically, and if you could just indicate whether you're voting for, against, or abstaining. So, starting with Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Gay.
For.
Councillor Grove-Jones.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Kershaw.
For.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
For.
Councillor Stockton.
For.
And Councillor Toy.
For.
And that's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Emma. Thank you, members. I think if we move to item 9, there are no items of business at my discretion. There's no press and public under item 10 to exclude, and no exempt matters or exempt business under items 11 or item 12. So that concludes the agenda. Are there, I think I have a raised hand from Councillor Toy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to note the work that officers bring to us, that's exceptional standard, it's well-rounded, we have good debate about it, but actually what they're producing is really good stuff that you know, gives us cause for thought. They've got the answers for it, and I'd just like to thank them for the work that they do, because it does, you know, it goes through unanimous because it's excellent work they're producing. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Toy. I certainly echo those remarks. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Kershaw and then Councillor Heinrich.
I didn't have my hand up actually, Chair. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Kershaw. They were legacy hands, I take it. Right. Same in your case, I think, Paul. Right. Okay. So I think that concludes the business for today. Thank you very much all for attending, and mind how you go in the near future, and best of luck to those who might be campaigning in the forthcoming elections. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye all.
Thanks, Andrew.